off and running.
And you're going to see Jalen Harrell get past the tackle, and then Braden McGregor's going to come in and finish him off. Everyone's worried about where's Aiden Hutchinson, where's David Ajabo. Right. Michigan's got pass rushers out the wazoo right now. Well, Michigan's in that.
Old 956. You can say she got it
All right, happy Labor Day. Welcome in. That was RG3 on the game, and, I thought he put it well. Michigan's got pass rushers out the wazoo. His first trip into the big house. Michigan successful, winning the game. What was it, 51-7? We're ready to kick things off today. Michigan football today. I'm Dennis Fithian, and I am joined by Trevor McCue, who was with us on this Monday after a long weekend. Trevor, great to see you. What'd you think of the game on Saturday?
I thought it was hot. Yeah, no, once we got settled in, I mean, the temperature was crazy. But, yeah, I mean, weak opponent, so, can only take so much from it. But I saw what I wanted to see. It was back to basics, but they did well. And the defense, like you said, I mean, leading off with those edge rushers, I think that was really what stood out to me the most was how well they were generating pressure and from how many different places. We've been talking all offseason about the committee approach to replace Hutch and Ajabo, and we saw it live on Saturday.
Yeah, you mentioned trying to put things in context, and some people are able to do it, but when it comes down to non-conference games and easy opponents, most people are not able to put it in perspective. You will have a large portion of people, whether they're Michigan fans or not, who saw the Michigan game on Saturday and will immediately just wave everything off and saying, that was the easiest team in the world. You could take nothing out of that. Well, I would disagree with those. I mean, you can take some things out, and then you have another, and it is a large portion of people who are just getting Michigan's great. Are you kidding me? Look at all these things. And both of these. Now, neither of those you have to find, and it's not fun. The most fun thing to do in sports is be like, hey, let's try to just, keep everything in perspective and tell people to tap the brakes, and the other people, you have to tell to, hey, you can find some things, you find your happy spot there, and then the real spot. And the thing is that I found, and we're going to get to some of these things coming up, I found with the Michigan defense that it was, I would be as excited or as encouraged as you possibly could be, right up to, knowing that you don't want to go overboard. So wherever that spot is, like saying, hey, I remember when Hunter Dickinson first started playing for Michigan. He didn't start the first few games, but he got in there, and there were non-conference games. And the first game, like, you watch him, you're like, wow, this guy's awesome. I mean, they couldn't stop him. Well, then you get to the second game, and he was awesome again. And there was a spot like, people were saying, tap the brakes. And, it was true, but, but the part there is like, you couldn't wait to see Hunter Dickinson go up against Big Ten talent or a big time center, because you could see this in what you were seeing, even though it was against, a lesser than opponents. And that's what I felt on Saturday with the defense. There was a lot of things to like there. And yeah, you have to take Hawaii, and you'll have to see UConn, and then Maryland, and hey, maybe it won't even be Iowa. But man, there are a lot of things to really like to get right up to that spot where you don't want to go overboard with that defense.
Yeah, for sure. I think whether you want to say it's grading on a curve or however you want to look at it, no different than practices or the scrimmages they run, right? How does this transfer to conference play in some of the bigger games, right? So, Anoma gets the sack. Are we now going to say he's, going to be the sack leader this year, et cetera, et cetera? No. But their job was to go out, look good, look better, get some rotations, and beat Colorado State the best they could, and they did that. So, again, there's some other teams out there that maybe didn't perform as well against lower opponents that they would have liked to see, and Michigan's on the other side of that. So I think you can take what you got and be happy with it. the amount of sacks coming from corners, safeties, linebackers, defensive tackle, and edge, right? Again, are they going to have near double-digit sacks every game? No, it was Colorado State. But still, seeing those things, very promising, and the amount of players that were making an impact. And I've got no problem taking some positivity from that and trying to figure out, how is it going to look against some better opponents? But out the gate, they did what they needed to do. They beat Colorado State handedly.
If you're out there and you're joining us for the first time, you can see that if you type a message in, we get to your feedback almost immediately. We put it up on the screen. And if we're not talking about it, certainly everyone can see it there, and we can see it there as well. In terms of what we are talking about today, we got 3 things that I have put up on the screen for a guide, pass rushers. You can almost guess these 3. I've got some likes and dislikes from the opener. And then we will start with the quarterback battle, which is on a lot of people's minds. It is part of what we saw there, Trevor, on Saturday. Before we get to the meat and potatoes of all of that, I want to tell you we got a lot of podcasts going on right now on the Maize and Blue Review. If you're not subscribing to the pods, then you're missing out if you're a Michigan fan. I mean, they're all there for you. And it's not just this show right here that we're playing every day at 1. We've got a multitude. I don't know if I could name all of them, but they've all hit the last 2 weeks. Here's one that just debuted on Friday. It's Sharpening the Edge. Brandon Justice. He did a feature all last year, Sharpening the Edge and looking at some of the odds. And now it's for you in podcast form. That is on Fridays at 5 o'clock. It debuted this past Friday, and looking forward to that coming up on this Friday and all throughout the football season. All right, let's get to the quarterback play. Let's see where Trevor is at. This was a game that Cade McNamara was not impressive in. J.J. McCarthy on the other side was impressive. Trevor, we look at the numbers. They might not surprise you, but not everybody may have seen some of these numbers. But in 43 snaps on Saturday for Cade McNamara, he ended up having a 39.7 quarterback ranking. That is not good. 67.2 Pro Football Focus ranked him. That's, all right. McCarthy, meanwhile, in those 11 snaps, was almost perfect, 99.9. I mean, he was 4 for 4 and then ran the ball pretty well. And his QBR was over 90 point. I'm sorry, his Pro Football Focus number was over 90.2. That says a lot. It doesn't say everything. I mean, how did you look at it? How are you telling people, like, when they say, hey, what'd you think of the quarterback battle?
Yeah, so, it's been broken down into a bunch of categories. Like, we wondered, okay, how are we going to judge this, statistically, eye test, Harbaugh specifically calling out red zone efficiency and, third down efficiency, right? So the biggest thing to me was this was supposed to be Cade's game, right? This was the game where Cade was going to show what he has in terms of the battle. He would theoretically be in the driver's seat. Then it would be JJ's start. And then we were going to take a look at where we were. And we're coming out of this with JJ clearly in the driver's seat. Now, we got to build a wall or put a line in the sand or whatever, because it feels like every time we have this conversation, fans want to come in with, oh, you're disrespecting Cade. And there is some of that out there. But this is 2022. I think Cade McNamara was absolutely the perfect quarterback for the 2021 Michigan Wolverines. I think he has been an incredible leader. I think what he did offensively and again, leadership-wise, just everything he did last year should be recognized. And, he's a huge piece of the turnaround this program and culture has had. Now, it's 2022. He's in a battle with JJ. We have to be realistic about the facts that we have and what we saw on the field. And, Cade wasn't overly impressive. My biggest concern was the red zone. I told, in our post-game podcast, I told Josh there was a tension in the stadium, kind of similar to early last year, where it was like, oh, we're settling for field goals again, and then the 0 for 4 start on third down. And when JJ came in, obviously there was some crowd fare, but the backup quarterback's always the most popular, right? But the offense just looked better. Those first 2 plays, he comes in on the second down. He does an option with CJ Stokes. 2 defenders are locked in on JJ. Stokes runs for 20 yards. The very next one, JJ makes the right read. He keeps it. Schoonmaker comes around, sets the block. JJ has a touchdown. So in the run game alone, just something Cade can't bring. In terms of passing, I knew they weren't going to take, the leash off, so to speak. But to not throw the ball downfield at all. I think it was the one throw over 10 yards, right?
Yeah.
For Cade not to
content for one down the kind of the seam. It was
so to not test that more, and again, even game situation wise, his checkdowns didn't look great. There was just something hiccup there, right? And the numbers show it, whether you're an analytical guy or not. And then JJ obviously coming in. Some people are saying, well, he only threw for 30 yards. Keep in mind what his role was in this game. He's coming in late in the third quarter. The game's over at this point. He's just trying to show a little bit of what the offense can do. We're going to hopefully see JJ throw the ball deeper against Hawaii and show what he can do arm talent wise. But again, just in terms of what they were asked to do, I don't think Cade was necessarily as bad as some people want to make it. But for a guy that's fighting for his job, it just wasn't overly impressive. And I think it's fair to say, again, Cade McNamara was the right quarterback for the 2021 Michigan Wolverines. I sit here today, J.J. McCarthy is the right quarterback for the 2022 Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, Trevor, whether it was fair or not, when Jim Harbaugh came out heading into game week that weekend and said, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to start Cade game 1. We're going to start J.J. game 2. Whatever you felt, whatever you're going to do, he was putting these guys on display for a 2-game showdown. But there was a lot of drama revolving around that. And I know a lot of people, especially, people on Amazing Blue Review, they'd been reading the reports about fall camp and that, Cade had, jumped ahead a little bit, looked good for the opener. And, well, he did look good for the opener. But, Harbaugh, and I don't know exactly who guys like Josh Henschke was talking with. They were there at the practice. These were these guys' opinions. But the opinion that was always going to matter the most was going to be Jim Harbaugh. And, Harbaugh, just listening to him explain how he was going about it, he felt this thing was really close. And, he did give, even if you were just parsing the words, he did give that slight advantage out of the 3 categories that he talked about. He did give the slight advantage to Cade. So we were going to put all of these throws and everything under the microscope, all that stuff that Harbaugh talked about, the 2-minute efficiency, the red zone efficiency, all of it. And then we were going to have the eye test. Well, when you know this and you're Cade McNamara and you get this news and then you come out on the first series and you're a little bit low and you're a little bit high and wide and the next one, people are going to be like, well, that's shaky. RG3 said later in the game that, he said he thought he had jitters. Jitters, shaky. That's not when you're the guy that's fighting for your job. Those are not the kind of things that you want to hear attached to how you came out when you were the quarterback. Now, it looked like Eric all fell when they were down there in the red zone, and McNamara shot one to him, and it got intercepted. They overturned it. People are like, he threw the pick. He was lucky he didn't. I don't know how you look at it if you're a Harbaugh there, and could they tell that all that was going to be right on him? I've looked at it. They had a nice end zone shot of that one at one point. And it looked like, it was going to be a ball that it was going to be catchable for him. I couldn't tell, exactly, the window that it was going to be there because he tripped and then, it ended up. So you don't have that one, but then he missed another one down there in the red zone. And, like it or not, sure, there were some drops. There was another one that the defender was draped all over. I think it was the tight end again. And I think it was all, he threw it in there, the defender knocked it down. It's like, I don't know if you should be making that throw. It just wasn't all that impressive, knowing that he needed to be somewhat impressive if he was going to keep the title of starting quarterback. And then meanwhile, JJ, and the snaps that he got, he was incredible. I don't know, incredible. He was very impressive. You can't be much more impressive than he was, So what are you going to do? And that's tough for Cade, which we're going to get to some of his comments afterwards and the likes and dislikes. But, that's a tough thing. As a quarterback. And I put the percentage out. I don't know how many other people, if you have your own, Trevor, but I said today on the board, on the den, that it was a 95% chance that McCarthy would now be the starter for game 3. I think, JJ is going to go through everything. And if he can just, toe the line, make some plays, look anything like he did last week, don't look like McNamara. And then, Cade, he would have to really be, more impressive. If they could reverse roles, well, then, maybe Cade would get the job. But, that would be extreme. That's why I put it at 95%.
Yeah, I think I'd probably put it somewhere close to that. I might put it lower because I think there's probably still a 10 to 15% chance we're going to see both quarterbacks post Hawaii. Harbaugh still isn't burying that if he thinks the 2 QB system is the best way to win, he's going to play that. So, but yeah, at this point, now that JJ knows he's the starter this week, he gets to carry himself like a starter, right? So in practice, in meeting rooms, he's going to be in front of the media, right? So how he carries that is going to be part of the equation as well. So you're right. I don't know that he can do bad enough against Hawaii at this point to mess it up. That's just how it is. But as far as Cade and the jitters and that kind of talk, I think you have to ask yourself, when was the last time that Cade looked really good where we weren't having these kinds of conversations about missed throws, missed opportunities, right? So the spring game, Davis Warren was the story, right? Cade didn't look great in the spring game, but we're like, hey, it's just a spring game, whatever. Georgia, right? Well, it's Georgia, probably the best college defense in 10 or 20 years, right? So, okay. Iowa, well, he wasn't really asked to do too much. That interception bounced off all, et cetera. Ohio State.
Nice throws in the second half against Iowa.
For sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but in terms of just like every game where it's like, well, this or well, that, there's been a hedge. I mean, I'd argue probably back to Penn State last year. You look at the numbers for his last 4 games, he's averaging like 150 yards. He has 1 TD, 4 or 5 interceptions, right? It's part of the equation. And I don't think you can say jitters or nerves or anything. He looked like himself out there to me. I didn't see it's the same Cade. He was Cade McNamara. He just was. And I'm not saying that was the best he can be. That's kind of the extreme angle I think some people are taking that we talk about, but I think we know what Cade is at this point. And then, yeah, JJ, the little things, right? So the out throw that Cade had to, I believe it was Cornelius, that was a little outside, right? That's a tough throw. TV doesn't do it justice because it's like, oh, it's only 5 or 10 yards, but that's a hard throw going from hash mark to sideline. JJ had the exact same play to Henning, and it was on the money, right? And that was like arm talent apparent. It's not just the 60-yard deep ball. It's that tough out throw. It's hitting the dig route before the receiver turns around. Those little things. And that's why the PFF grades are so good, because when you're talking about, well, all fell and all these different scenarios, well, that's factored into these analytic metrics, right? So catchable throws and things like that. So yeah, however you want to break it down, eye test, analytics, true stats, whatever, JJ looked better than Cade in the game, and now it's his turn to start. And if he does everything right, it's going to be his job to seal.
Yeah, you mentioned that part about, and it's a good thing to bring up, and Harbaugh did allude to it, that this might not just be a 2-game showdown. He could continue with a quarterback rotation. I don't like that. I hope that that's not the case. I hope Harbaugh is just saying these things. I understood last year getting J.J. McCarthy in a little bit to get his feet wet, and you didn't want him leaving. So you understand putting him in a little bit. But I didn't even like it last year. I can't see – I think the negatives outweigh the positives when it comes down to after next week, if you're going to be Jim Harbaugh and you're going to be playing both of these guys, that is something that a recipe for disaster, I would put that at. So we'll see. Like, I thought that this 2-game tryout, even though you see the drama that is created, I still think, that it's because of the schedule and then the games that you have in front of it with UConn, and then whatever you want to think about Maryland, and you could put this stuff behind you pretty quick, and then you'll have your starter. So I liked it, but I don't like it after week 2. What's your thoughts about that? And then we'll get some of the feedback up here and see what the people are saying. You can respond to that as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. And I think that needs to be stated. Yes, this is a unique situation and it is different. And I know we're going to get into Cade's comments that he said about it, not necessarily expecting it. The non-conference schedule gave Michigan the opportunity to do this. So I like it because they're taking advantage of the situation. Yeah, if they're playing we opened with Notre Dame one year with Shea, even Washington, are they doing this? Probably not, right? So they're taking advantage of the situation, and I'm fine with it. But you're right. If come, Maryland or, even deeper into the Big Ten, if they're still doing this, I think, JJ was so raw last year and you were trying to bring him on. We've heard Weiss kind of talk about what their game plan was throughout the year and why he was getting more snaps and more crucial moments as the season went on. And I understood it. But you get to a point where it's like, okay, if it's risk aversion with Cade versus JJ ceiling, whatever it is, at this point, you're 100% right. I think the negatives outweigh. You got to go with a guy. Now, the other guy's going to play because there's going to be blowouts and, things like that.
That's
the backup's going to play, but that's different than JJ coming in on third down in the first quarter against Ohio State, 100%. So if they don't feel ready to make the decision after Hawaii and they want to use UConn, I guess that's okay. But I think, conference schedule, you got to pick a guy and go with it.
All right, let's get to some of the feedback and see what you think what the people are saying. We start out with Wesley, and he says Harbaugh is using Jedi mind tricks on Cade. There is nothing Cade can do to win this job. Harbaugh is doing this song and dance, so Cade wouldn't transfer. Cade is in a no-win situation. Go ahead.
I understand why people can take that perception, but I do think a lot of it is actually more on the other side. Harbaugh respects Cade McNamara. He's a former quarterback. He respects Cade for what he's done for this program. Everything I said earlier about 2021. You got to remember, Cade could have transferred back in the spring and probably be a full-time starter somewhere. He knew, this 2 QB thing. He knew he was going to be in a battle. He also knew there was a likelihood that even if he was the starter, JJ was going to continue to get snaps, right? So he knew that situation. And I gave him a lot of credit for embracing it full on and the way he's carried himself all season, saying, I'm a Big Ten defending quarterback. This is my team. He was voted a captain. He deserved it. I think, up until Saturday, he's done and said all the right things. So in terms of the transfer thing, Harbaugh said he doesn't see either one of those guys doing that. And, the feedback we've gotten, that's not rosy covered glasses. We've gotten that feedback from a lot of people that they're just not the kind of guys to quit and run. And, we know what JJ feels about Michigan and what he said. So I don't know that was a huge fear, and it's not anymore because the transfer windows have been introduced immediately. So Cade couldn't transfer right now if he wanted to. So he'd literally have to quit on the team. And I just don't see that being a possibility. So I do think it was a delicate thing you had to do to keep both QBs happy. But do I think he's playing with Cade's mind or anything like that? No, Harbaugh's too honest, if anything. So I think behind the scenes, he's been telling the guys what's going on. So
I think you put that well, saying a delicate balance in going into this. Do I think that there's a chance that, that's why he had JJ in there last year, because he didn't want him to transfer, and he did tell him, that he would give him an opportunity.
Sure.
Could be something like that is in the back of his mind. It's the same thing with the quarterbacks, like the 5-star Jaden Davis is supposed to visit coming up this Saturday for the night game against Hawaii. When they picked that, when JJ starting, how this all, could have that factored in? I don't know, like maybe they're byproducts. I don't think that drives any of the big decision here. You can do anything you want. So maybe he was thinking, wow, let's go ahead. It made sense to me because Cade was the starter last year to give him the first game. So, naturally, I think, getting JJ the second game, but are those things, sometimes things just happen and then people are like, that's a conspiracy theory, but I don't know. Antoine's saying that he appreciates what Cade has done. He hopes he stays, but he doesn't blame him if he wants to leave. We still need him in case of injury, and he helps to mentor JJ, but it's hard, and I hope he accepts.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think Cade deserves more respect and appreciation for what he's done than maybe he gets. And again, I saw, I think it was Klatt said it about Clifford at Penn State, about veteran QBs have such a tough relationship with the fan base because the longer you're here, it just feels like you weren't good enough to leave, right? So it's that Batman quote, leave a hero or, die a villain or whatever. So I know that's tough for Cade. As far as mentoring JJ, I mean, he's a captain, he's a leader, but I don't know that that's in the cards either necessarily. But I think Cade looked at it as, and we'll get into his comments again, but Cade felt he did absolutely everything to earn the starting job. And he's a little tripped out by the situation. But at the end of the day, he's not competing against 2021 Cade McNamara. He's competing against 2022 JJ McCarthy, right? So, I hope Cade stays too. And I hope, it might be a John Navarre situation where it's going to take time for the fan base to come around and really realize and appreciate everything Cade's done. But I also think it's completely fair to look at what we have in front of us today and talk about what should be happening moving forward.
Yeah, and I think you never know for sure how things could play out, even though it all looks McCarthy
100%.
right now. Obviously injury, but poor play, and I think it will be a little bit of a shorter leash because you do have Cade McNamara. If you got in trouble and you felt like you needed a spark,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be the craziest thing about going back to Cade McNamara. I think after Saturday's disappointment weighs off, he'll realize that. I think just going back to a couple of years ago when Nick Saban put Tua in the second half of that championship game over Jalen Hurts, and then Alabama won the championship and Hurts stayed around and fought for that job and did not win it, and Tua was in there, and then Hurts still stayed around all the way to the SEC championship game. When he came in, it was a huge spark, and the Tide ended up winning that SEC championship game. You just point to something like that, and then you look, and it's worked out really well for both of those QBs. And, I'm not saying I know what Matt Weiss said about him being in the pros and everything else, but staying around and being this close to being back in there and having everything, and you still might have a chance, who knows, with how Harbaugh would do it. I think that would be something. Wesley saying that the mentor stuff is crap. He wants to play and should go somewhere he has a fair shot, and maybe he will after this year. I mean, there was always that possibility. The Blue Dove says, if JJ becomes quarterback one, what role will Cade be in a 2-quarterback system? What does Cade bring to the game that JJ doesn't? That's right to Trevor McCue to answer that one.
Yeah. He's going to be more of a true backup QB than JJ was, right? He's not going to come in situationally, because you're right. It's not something he brings, whether to the run game or whatever it might be. Again, I think with blowouts and other things like that, Cade's going to get action. It's also too, if JJ rips off a 40 or 50-yard run or whatever, and they want to give him a break real quick and let Cade come in, that would be about the maximum Cade would bring. If it's not going to be 2-quarterback system at that point. That's what Cade's role would be. But like Dennis said, I mean, we do know the challenges and opportunities JJ has, where when he's trying to extend plays, sometimes he doesn't give up on them, right? So if JJ goes out there and he starts chucking interceptions around, I hope Cade stays in the right headspace and ready, because there's a good chance he would get put back out there for sure.
All right, you mentioned the comments, and we talked about some of the things that Harbaugh would be looking for. And before we get to the pass rush that I put there up on the screen, let's talk about some of those comments McNamara had following the game. He said, I would definitely say it was pretty unusual. It was a thing I wasn't expecting by the end of camp. I thought I had my best camp. I thought I put myself in a good position. And that was just a decision that the coach went with. Now, the other quote, a part of this, said, I was confident in the way I performed over camp. Definitely felt that way. However, it's not my decision. Whatever my role is, I'm honored that my teammates recognize me for the role I have currently. All right, Trevor, I looked at those comments and I did not think that was all that big of a deal. I did start to see people pick and choose some of these comments where it just blew up and said, McNamara said things are pretty unusual. It was a decision that, blindsided him. He was, it wasn't his decision. I didn't put all of this in there. And, that did get people worked up into a frenzy. My position is, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think if you understand the situation where Saturday morning, Cade McNamara, who won the program's first Big Ten title in 17 years, was the starting quarterback, and he was going in, and then he knew that he didn't have his best game, and then he saw what JJ did. That's a really tough spot to put anybody in. I tend to give guys breaks right after the game when they say something like that. Now, if he doubles down the next time or this week, you hear, Cade's Mr. Pouty Puss or something running around. Like, that would be different. But I just think, here was a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl that the Broncos won over the Carolina Panthers. You had the MVP and Cam Newton. Everybody loved Cam Newton, but here was Cam Newton. He didn't jump on the ball at the end of the game. I don't know whether he was scared he was going to get hurt. But afterwards, man, he was pretty much a jerk. He wasn't complimentary to the other team. But after that, I said, that's a really tough spot for a young quarterback. I'm going to give him a break. I'm going to give Cade McNamara a break. There seemed like a lot of Michigan fans, wanted to call him whiny and uncaptain like and everything else, I'd say give him a break. But everybody has their opinion, and this is part of the drama that you get into when you put these quarterbacks on display and you put them under the microscope.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you and disagree with you, and I'll kind of, parse it down. Actually, if you can put it back up for me again in a second, I would appreciate it, just so I can go through it. But first, I agree with you about kind of giving him a break, because that was a really tough situation. Josh had suggested if there was even an option to maybe not put him out there for the media, that might have been a good call. I would argue, as the starter and the captain, though, this is just a tough situation he was going to have to face. So I'm a big F1 racing fan, and they always will play like over the broadcast radio communication with the team. And I've always thought that is so unfair to catch somebody in that moment, because whether it's their adrenaline or the raw emotion, whatever, it's just unfair. So there is a little bit of that here. But the part people are making a big deal about, I agree with you, isn't him saying it was unusual. What he meant was the decision. And he's right. It is unusual. This isn't a normal situation. We've talked about with the schedule and everything, taking advantage of it. He's right. It's not normal at the end of camp to be like, not do I not want to name a starter, but I'm going to let you both start a game. So he's right about that. And he said he wasn't expecting it. This was kind of a tell to me, though. And I kind of leaned into this earlier when he said, I had my best camp. I put myself in a good position. That was kind of my first realization that he was looking at it like, this is my job, and as long as I improve, I'm keeping it. I thought that was kind of a tell. And something he didn't do in these comments, and I don't know if he's ever done, is mention JJ, right? He's always measuring against himself. He never mentions JJ. And you can make whatever conclusions you want to make from that. But I did have an issue with the second part of this, which is blatantly questioning Harbaugh. I mean, that's just how it comes off, where, you're the captain, and to say, oh, that's just what, coach went with, and the last part, it's not my decision, whatever my role is. I'm honored my teammates recognize me. I know that's him saying he's glad to be a captain, obviously, but that, again, you go back to Harbaugh's comment about players don't elect the starter. It just felt like a little bit of a back and forth where he's calling out Harbaugh there. And it's just not a great look. I don't think again, there's people that aren't going to like Cade because they're on Team JJ, and some of the fans are going to label him all the things he said, and that's probably not fair. Should he have said those things, though? I don't think so, and I know there are people in the program that agree, and I know it's been talked about, and I'm sure it'll be something that's taken care of and they move on from it. But, yeah, again, it was a tough situation for him to be in. I agree with him that it's an unusual situation. I agree with him that he had a really good camp and felt like he was in a strong position. But after a big win, being the captain, that kind of, I don't know, it just wasn't a good look. Again, it's not something I'm going to bury him for, but I don't think it's a good look.
It wasn't a good look, but what did you want him to say? Hey, I'm a team guy, so I'm all for what's best for the team. You guys can evaluate me, whatever you want. I'm here for Michigan. I'm Michigan through and through. Good luck to JJ. I love him. Steel, sharpen steel. The expectations for the position, go blue. I don't know, like, I get.
No, you're right. We hammer a guy when he's honest, right? We hate coach speak and all the generic stuff, and then when a guy's honest, we go after him for it, right? So yeah, there is that dichotomy there. But if he's a
different guy this week, Trevor, if he goes in and they're in practice, whatever it is, maybe they get the day off and they're back out there, and he starts acting differently, and you hear like, oh yeah, Cade had his head down.
Yes.
Now that's going to be something where everybody, is pasting him, and everybody has their the right to do whatever they want. But, if he gets out there and maybe he goes up to JJ and like, let's go, man. He gets it. He gets it after 24 hours. He's back out there. He's Captain America. Let's go. That's what I think if I had to predict, that's the way he's going to be. But, I'm surprised. Maybe I don't know if I'm surprised. Just the amount of backlash that he's getting, like he's some conceited jerk, for being upset, about how it played out. So, could he, if he were his agent or if you're, somebody else, maybe you say, I know you're hot and everything else. Just, let's say this or say that. We all wish we have a chance to take something back sometime, but I don't know. I don't put after a game like that. I'm not putting too much on Kate McNamara on these comments here. I'm not, but that's okay.
Yeah. No, and again, it's the continued behavior that's going to matter more. I agree 100%. But again, part of the reason of naming them two starters is letting them live the week as the starter too. It's not just the game, right? It's how you carry yourself in these media appearances, how you carry yourself in the practices and in the post game. I think it's just part of it. He's under a microscope. Again, I'm not burying him for it. I don't think it's as crazy as everybody's making it out to be. But the fact is, if he had a better game, and if JJ hadn't had the game he had, he's not making those comments. So he let that side of him come out. And again, I would probably do the same thing. You know, I'm asking him to be better than I could be. I get it. It's a tough situation, but it is what it is.
The captain says he hasn't liked Cade's me sounding comments even before last weekend. He was talking about being a Big Ten championship quarterback, honored to be elected by his teammates, when out asked about it, etc. And look, you know, he went to Indianapolis. I mean, he was the starting quarterback. They sent him to Indianapolis. Those are the kind of questions like, hey, is that going to give you some confidence that you were able to, you know, win for the first time in 17 years? I mean, how do you feel about the team? Should at every stop, even in Indianapolis, he should have been like, yeah, well, wait, because it's always going to be expectation. Like, I don't know, like what people expected him to say there. Even the captain saying it's me. I don't know. Like, I get it. Antoine saying, I do want JJ to start, but what happens if he gets hurt? He would still like Cade to be around if possible. And then Cade, you're going to roll with him. Well, yeah, I think for sure.
Yeah.
Like here, if you're sitting here, Cade McNamara, the captain, gets demoted and he hightails it out. He can't even go anywhere and play just to be upset about the situation and be mad at Michigan and Jim Harbaugh and quit the team. Well, then that's going to be way different. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Going to be a way different type situation. Go ahead, Trevor.
No, I agree. And I just sitting here today, I would not anticipate Cade McNamara doing something like that. I mean, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe relationships fracture to a point that's something you would consider, but knowing Cade and knowing what this team says about him, I don't see that any plausibility of a scenario. And then, yeah, as far as, you know, the me, whatever, I mean, I don't think it's any worse than any other quarterback. And again, if you could find a conference champion quarterback that isn't at least a little bit cocky, I'd be shocked. So I don't have a problem with him touting his resume. He's deserved it, earned it.
Yeah. What did they say? You were at the game I was watching, and RG3, Mark Jones, I think. Mark Jones said he recalled when I guess it would have been Harbaugh, but I wrote it down somewhere. He said that he remembered saying that an angry Cade, they liked an angry Cade, as that brought the best out of him. I don't know. They went back to his high school career. They went back to his battle with Joe Milton. So they're saying that they liked the angry Cade. So there's also that part. You know, now you got a guy who is, you know, fighting. So you probably do have that angry Cade that you're talking about. Okay, some more on the feedback. People talking about the staff and the disconnect. Time to move on. The Blue Dove saying Cade, talking about him being in a competition with Bowman or Davis Warren as a backup. Maybe Orgy getting some snaps. So Orgy did get some snaps. You know, look, Cade still, I mean, let's not then, you know, put Davis Warren in front of him.
Right.
I mean, look, you know, this is still something. It's an unusual situation because Cade, if there was no JJ McCarthy, people would still feel like Michigan had a pretty good shot, a pretty good team with Cade being out there, hoping that he was going to get a little bit better. And you know, a lot of times you do end up getting a little better as, you know, you move from one season to the next with the experience and everything you had. So let's not go overboard on, you know, let's put Alex Orgy as, you know, coach or something, right?
Yeah, no, Cade's definitely, I mean, he has a strong argument to be a starter. I'm not ready to make him the third quarterback. That might be a little harsh.
Luke saying, can any of you tell us what 5-star recruits are or will sign Michigan for Cade?
For Cade. I don't understand what that means. Yeah.
Tell us what 5-star recruits are going to sign. Yeah, I don't know what he means by Cade, but Jaden Davis is a 5-star recruit, and he is out of Providence High School in North Carolina.
Yep, Charlotte.
They don't get much higher rated than Jaden Davis. I mean, he would be Michigan's highest rated quarterback recruit. I don't know, since Drew Henson, I guess he's up there as among the best in the country. And he is coming in. He really likes Michigan. So it's
well, and he has a good relationship with JJ. JJ has been a very good recruiter before he committed, or excuse me, once he committed to Michigan and since he's been to Ann Arbor. So those two have been connecting. So yeah, the tinfoil conspiracy hat, Davis coming into town, JJ starting, you know, maybe they're going to pass more, blah, blah. We could get into all the theories, but yeah, they do have it. Sounds like they have a good relationship. I hope Jaden Davis locks it down. It sounds like his parents are the ones kind of pushing for him to go through the whole season. Libby obviously knows way more than me, but yeah, getting him would be a nice boost for the Michigan recruiting for sure.
You got that right. Yeah. Okay. Let's get to some other things. D. Brown saying calling Cade a championship quarterback is true but misleading. Yeah, I don't think it's misleading. I mean,
I know what he's getting at, because I make the same argument sometimes when people say, you know, he won the Ohio State game. It's like, well, Hassan Haskins had 5 TDs, Hutchinson had 3 sacks, etc. Again, you can say Michigan didn't beat Ohio State because of Cade McNamara, but don't downplay his role in the conference championship last year. Again, whether it was behind the scenes or leading the offense the way he did what he was asked. Cade McNamara deserves to be recognized as one of the leaders that helped turn this program around, and his impact will be felt for a long time. And you can say you think JJ should start without, you know, knocking him down from that.
All right, let's get to some other things. It wasn't just the quarterbacks that were playing the game, though. If you've just listened to the first 41 minutes, you are talking about, and yeah, you tend to talk about the quarterbacks a lot in a disproportionate way. So we are guilty of that. But also part of Saturday's game was the pass rush. And as much as you can like a defense without going overboard, that's where I am at after I saw the curtain go up on Saturday for this defense. You know, there was a time, and I told Josh Henschke, the publisher of the Maize and Blue Review, this on Saturday, and he was putting up a lot of practice reports, and he kept going through, like, you know, Taylor Upshaw, Mike Morris, you know, those guys are going to be starters, but they really like Jalen Harrell. But then he just started going down like, hey, Derek Moore, you know, Derek Moore is, you know, having a really good camp. Don't be surprised if he gets, you know, real snaps in the 2 deep, you know, and you're making adjustments on your depth chart. And I'm thinking, okay, man, these guys, so far they've like 6 guys of these outside rush linebackers. And then AB Anoma comes in, and then it's not even 3 or 4 days later, and there's another practice report like, yeah, this guy's he comps David Ajabo. I'm like, David Ajabo, like, no, that's going a little bit overboard, you know, come on with all of these. But I can see what the coaches were telling Josh, and I can see what Josh was relaying, you know, to the Maize and Blue Review. Like, he was right, and that's it, man. These guys, it was nice. I mean, they were flying all over the place, and you do have to put in perspective of the opponent and everything else, but 7 sacks divided by 9 players, 11 TFLs, couple turnovers. I mean, what wasn't to like about what you saw from the defense?
Oh, it was so good. I'm probably going to smile the entire time we're talking in this segment. I'm a defensive guy anyway, so this is usually my happy spot. But yeah, it's always tough because you're like, man, everybody looks good in camp, right? Like, nobody's coming out saying, yeah, this dude's been trash for us, right? So you worry, like, well, there's always the camp hype. But yeah, we saw a lot of it on Saturday. Again, bend to a curve for the opponent. That's fine. But Jalen Harrell stuck out huge. I mean, he was the number 1 rated player, according to Pro Football Focus, for Michigan. But I mean, you could see it. He looked awesome when he was out there. Mike Morris, again, I think people have tried to compare him to different players because it's like he's the obvious replacement for Hutchinson, but he's not a Hutchinson style player. And we saw him make a huge impact in his style of play. I thought he looked great.
Yes, he did.
Upshaw didn't get a lot of stats, but in terms of his role and the pressure and what he was doing, he looked great. And then, yeah, you just go into like the second and third layer of guys. And, you know, Ayabi Anoma, he was in camp for 2 weeks, you know, and I've been trying to tempt, you know, my expectations. I've been saying, you know, maybe he can get to like a third down Uche type role at some point late in the season. He's explosive, real quick step on that sack was just like, whoa, okay. So if he could continue to grow, and Derek Moore, we've talked about him all off season. He's been one of our big hype train guys, just a physical monster. He looked really good lining up at different spots in the line. Braden McGregor is so close. He's so close. His actual,
I don't know if it was a shock to me, but I hadn't heard as much about him, but he was all over the place.
Yeah, out of the guys, he was probably the one that was talked about the least, and he was probably the guy a lot of people wanted to break out the most, right? So you could see the potential. He almost had a strip sack on the interception. He almost got there on another one, missed a couple other tackles. So he's just got to put it together. But physically, he looks the part. So if he can put it together, he's another guy there that, I mean, again, if they're running 6 deep there and that's just edge, right? Mike Sainer still got a sack blitzing, right? Junior Colson was all over the field. He was so excited for this year because he said, hey, I'm glad we're going to be a committee approach. I get to do more this year. And we saw he's a guy that got in the backfield. I'm blanking now, but I thought a couple of the safeties got sacks in there too. So again, it was really a team approach, which is what we expected under Minter and what we expected with Michigan, adjusting to, when you have Hutchinson and Ajabo, yeah, you let those guys work, of course. Now you have a arguably deeper team. You can do this kind of approach and just running vanilla defense. I was really impressed. Again, on a curve. I know it's Colorado State, but as much as you can get excited, like you said, without going overboard, that's where I am right now. They looked really good.
Yeah, we're in the same spot. And I think that's where Michigan fans should be. But you will notice and this is part of when you have a schedule that people look at and you're a Power 5 conference, you don't have any Power 5 teams on there, immediately there's going to be a lot of people that just dismiss whatever. And you understand that. I mean, you do understand that. You understand there's going to be a lot of people making it sound like these guys are ready for the Hall of Fame. Anoma, that rep that we're talking about, he makes a beeline for the quarterback. He did look a lot like David Ajabo. If we were at practice standing around and watching them go through a pass rush drill, we might say that was a hell of a rep by Anoma. I mean, he had, he beat the right tackle like a rented mule, and then the running back, it was like those guys were in slow motion, and Anoma is in like the hyper speed. That's how, he made those guys. It was a men among boys type situation. So, you want to see a little bit more of him now. And Derek Moore looks like he is an NFL defensive end. I don't know, like not talent-wise, but you just line him up, you're like, who's that guy? Number 8.
He doesn't look 18, does he?
Oh, 18?
It's unbelievable.
I can't imagine that kid being 18.
No, it's crazy. I mean, we've been talking about him, Mason Graham, and Kenneth Grant. Those 3, 22 class defensive recruits that all 3 of them have shown up just physically. It's unbelievable. It really is, because the biggest gap on the defensive line to the offensive line is most offensive line starters have been in the program for 3 or 4 years, right? So you're going against college players who have been in the weight room in a college program for 3 years. You're not supposed to show up as an 18-year-old and be able to hang with those guys. And all 3 of them did. Graham, Grant, and Moore, all 3 of them were very good on Saturday. So that class just continues to look like an absolute steal across the board. So
good stuff. Trevor McCue, who, if you probably already know this, if you are a member of the Maize and Blue Review, but Trevor will come out with his stock report on the team. I believe that is a Monday tradition now. Is that accurate?
We're hoping to do Sunday.
Sunday. Okay.
Yeah. So I had the offense out Sunday, and then life took a hold. I mean, I think too. We've had some weird weeks, our team, the past couple weeks. So I had some stuff come up, and I got defense out today, Monday. But yeah, the goal is to have both of those posts on Sundays after the game. So
yeah, weird things. I didn't have power for 4 days.
I was being nice. Yeah.
we got a refrigerator in this studio that there's just water and stuff in there, and so you wouldn't think that was all that big of a deal, but the freezer thawed after 4 days, and so carpet all around was drenched. So there was a lot of things where, in addition to just throwing out food and stuff when you have your power go out, that it's not a lot of fun. Just things happen. All right, I've got some likes and dislikes. We're going to start with the likes. I'll throw you the likes and you tell me what you thought of my likes on Saturday. And then you can, of course, add anything that you wanted to. There was the one point, it was pretty obvious watching the game. Ronnie Bell makes a catch and the fans got up, and it wasn't a little golf clap, man. They gave him a rousing ovation for the captain who got hurt in last year's opener. I really liked that. What about you?
Very cool moment. Yeah. I mean, in my podcast with Lexi before the game, that was something we kind of shouted out, was I wanted Ronnie Bell to get his first catch and see how the crowd reacted. It kind of reminded me of, this fan base fell in love with Ronnie Bell after that Penn State game where he dropped the TD to tie the game. And I remember that first catch he had in Ann Arbor after that. The crowd cheered for him because he had faced some disgusting social media attacks. And then the way, emotionally how he handled that, I think that was when the fan base fell in love with him. So that moment, yeah, when he got that grab and seeing how excited he was, and then the whole crowd standing and cheering, yeah, that was a highlight of the day for sure. Very cool.
A Michigan game day experience, you might not want it over 80 like it was or whatever it felt like in the stadium. And, there's the tailgating, how much ever you like, whatever you're going to do. I like playing bocce ball at the golf course, and you can just bring a football. I would be fine with that. But the game day experience, there's nothing like it in the country. Michigan really has it going. But you take a look at those home uniforms like they have. And I know they tweak some things, the different helmets, but there was a point I was just looking at it. I saw the Michigan helmet, and I did see the uniform there, the pants, everything else. And I said, this is great. I mean, what they've got going here. I know you rank the uniforms and game day experience and stadiums and everything else. Michigan's not taking a back seat makes it sound like I don't even think it's doing them justice. They are at the top when it comes to all this: uniforms, helmets, game day traditions, game day event, all of it here. And I was reminded by just looking at those uniforms on Saturday. They're great.
They're the best in college football. Yeah. I'm a uniform junkie. So in a previous life with my marketing degree, I was trying to get into sports branding, and I did a little bit of sports branding work. So I'm always a sucker for color schemes and uniforms and the stadium and how it all pieces together. And yeah, there is nothing better than the Michigan maize and blue uniforms in Michigan Stadium. And they were popping a little bit more under that sun on Saturday. I noticed that too. They looked really good in that sunlight. So I am a fan. I like the all blue look at the right time. I do like the blue pants on the road too. I don't mind doing a little change, but yeah, every now and then you take a look at those traditional, the blue jersey, the maize pants. You're like, yeah, that's it, man. That's the look.
Yeah, that's why sometimes when they're going to go, I remember back in the day, they'd try to do something else. I'm like, you don't need to not mess with anything. You got it.
Yeah. Don't do the crazy numbers or weird stripe. None of that. If you want to change the pant color, you're playing Iowa, so don't wear maize pants because the yellows clash. Do blue pants. Okay.
Well, I only bring this up once a year, and I might as well do it right now because I didn't realize, you had that marketing angle and everything that you look like. I say it once a year. I've been saying it for 25 years. I'm not getting the information down to the correct people, but they did it again on Saturday. RG3 was in the Michigan tunnel. He ran down the tunnel with the players and got right there. It was really great camera work and everything else. It was nice. And RG3 then ran up to the stadium, ran up to the press box, which is no small feat when you have to, even if you're in great shape, running up those steps, man. Not that I'm in great shape, but you get about halfway and you're like, whoa, I'm starting to feel it. Well, my point is, in that tunnel, they do have something that says go blue there, and that's nice. But they have literally, hundreds of yards of canvas to work with. And it's just a white tunnel. Now, the aesthetic, how would it look if it was all blue, or if it was maize and blue, or if you just put a couple of helmets? The Red Wings back when they were at Joe Louis Arena, nobody saw it, but it was way down outside of their locker room. Whenever they won the Stanley Cup, and they were winning a lot of them, they would put the entire roster up there. They had all the names and awards for that season. It was kind of big. They could do something like that. They've done nothing. And every time they're on TV, they show it. That the folks want to have, because the tunnel, there's nothing more, traditional or cooler in college football with the Wolverines running out of the tunnel. So then they back it up and get all the way up there, and then they show it. And you see some wires hanging up at the top. And then it's nothing but all of this room. Hell, I know that they probably, talk to some of their advertisers. They wouldn't mind putting it up there. They could make a little money. Ward Manuel probably likes that, but they don't do anything.
Yeah, you might be onto something there. Because, yeah, like right outside the door, they have like the Rose Bowl list of years or something like that, right? I can't think of what it is exactly right now. There's something right next to Michigan Store that's painted on the wall. But, yeah, other than the Go Blue and the team thing across the top, they don't really have much in there. You're onto something, man. Yeah, some murals, some lights. Maybe you don't have to go as hardcore as like Cowboy Stadium or AT&T or whatever it's called now with their tunnel, but yeah, maybe they could spruce it up a little bit. You're right.
They could do something. I'm not going to say every day. That would be stupid. All right. I talked about this a little bit. As much as you can like the defense without going overboard, you and I agree. We're right in that spot. And a lot of the argument is going to be from people already. You can hear it. You mean nothing. That means nothing. That was Colorado State. You can't take anything from that. Well, you take a little bit, but that those same ones that are going overboard, like, whoa. And I might be more on I'll go overboard a little bit than I am going to go and undersell it. Some of the things like seeing like Chris Jenkins, pushing back this pocket and just looking like he's taking on two guys and like smashing them together. I can't wait to see more of Chris Jenkins. And I put him down in my likes. I don't know what his stats ended up being, but he just looked like in the middle that there was a defensive tackle from Oklahoma in the same draft 2010 of Adamik Sue, who ended up getting drafted, I think, by the Bucks. He's got a same type, he's not
Gerald McCoy.
Gerald McCoy. That's who he reminds me.
I was digging. I knew it was up there.
Nice. That was nice. Somebody, I should come up with the actual player. But and I was thinking maybe if I'm talking to myself through it, that it would pop into my head. Gerald McCoy was a really good defensive tackle, but Jenkins is built a lot like him. Taller, leaner, but somebody that you think about, man, he could be a defensive end. And I know he moved around a little bit, but there was a couple spots in there. It looked like he had two guys on him. He was kind of like pushing him around, and he was pushing the pocket back. And I'm like, yeah, this is the kind of disruption you want from somebody in the middle like Jenkins. Love him.
No, I agree. You've been on him for a while. Yeah, he bulked up this year too. He looks like an absolute beast. And you pair him with Mozzie, those two inside is going to be a defensive tackle tandem we haven't had in a long time in Ann Arbor. We haven't seen that. I don't remember exactly how he graded out, but he did what he's supposed to do, right? Which is fill gaps, make tackles in the run game. And again, yes, Colorado State, yada, yada. They hardly gave up any runs over 2 yards. I think it was like a handful of runs that went over 2 yards. They were keeping everything behind. He's technically a defensive end in that base set that Harbaugh has been talking about where Mason Graham's in there. So, he lines up in a 3 technique or even a little bit more outside, like a 3-4 defensive end. So he's one of those guys we've talked about a ton because of his versatility. He's big, he's strong, he's athletic. He can line up in a lot of different spots. And maybe you don't hear his name called a ton, but you go back and watch the film and go, oh, he occupied this double team. That's why Colson snuck in. Oh, he came around the edge and got the running back's attention. That's why, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I was really impressed with him along with, Mozzie was everything we thought Mozzie would be. So quite the pair Michigan has on the defensive front there.
The other guy I have on here that I liked, I could list probably about 20 of them, but DJ Turner, he's one of those, they mention it on the broadcast again, because it is something that jumps out that he ran a 4.2840 GPS times. I guess that's even better than laser time. So to be accurate there, they had Bo Jackson up there. It's like running a 4.18, which I don't think is true. So I don't know how they went through everything else. I know Bo ran a blistering 40 time, but I didn't think it was 4.18. And I don't know if DJ Turner runs truly a 4.28, because if he does that, I think that he will be a first-round draft pick in the NFL. But more and more since the second half of the season, this guy's he's a playmaker. He's just wherever it is, you want to throw the ball at him, good. You want to put it on the ground, 5 is going to take it. He's going to be going the other way. He's awesome. I don't even know. He doesn't get talked about a whole lot. And the other guy that Harbaugh said could run right there with DJ Turner, he was kind of like even a throwaway comment in one of those podcasts that he did. He said, oh, yeah, Roman Wilson runs right with DJ right there. And then it was like, hey, the freak list has him at 4.28. These guys sub 4.3, one on each side of the ball. Speed kills. I mean, you want speed, you want great players and everything else, but I don't know. DJ Turner could be an All-American.
I think that's the ceiling for him. He absolutely could get there. He's, there is some preseason hype that, best cover corner in the Big Ten, maybe one of the better in the country. His knock for a long time was size. People don't think he was going to grow any taller or add any weight. He was a little smaller of a recruit. He has now, right? So now he's got the physical piece to go along with all the tools that he's got. He's probably not going to get thrown at a ton, this year. But when he does, if he can get his hands on the ball, man, he is a threat to get to the end zone every single time if he intercepts the ball.
I am with you. Let me throw some dislikes up there. I've got them somewhere. Here they are. Dislikes. So the student section, there's nothing I can do about it. I didn't go to Michigan. I don't have any student tickets. I'm not going to go down there and say, hey, let's get into the stadium so it looks good on TV. But it does look good on TV. And so I am just going to complain about that. I don't like it. The other thing that I don't like is the Harbaugh. He's got this rotation going. And the first time they brought J.J. McCarthy, it was in the middle of a series. He brings him in on the first down for one handoff, and then he's taking him out. Harbaugh could sit around and tell me his rhyme or reason. Maybe he wants to get his feet wet. Maybe he wants to lull the other team into thinking, like, when they watch him on tape, it doesn't necessarily mean they've got something going on with JJ. That's probably the reason, but I think, that drive stalled. And you're not giving the quarterback that's out there. I think, and this is one of the reasons that you don't do it. It's like you want continuity, and it doesn't serve any purpose. You're trying to set something up. I think, again, I would tell Harbaugh, it'd be interesting. I would ask him that question. Can you tell me the positives that you want to have for just because I would say I think there's a few negatives about continuity there. I'd be interested to see what I have to say. That is something I didn't like. And I also didn't like, we've already been over this, you understood it a little bit more than me, the blowback from McNamara's post-game comments. It's like, guy went in thinking that he was going to be the starter, which is even a decent performance. He didn't have a decent performance. Meanwhile, the guy he was competing with knocked it out of the park. That's tough to take right after the game. Everybody wants him to be Captain America, Captain Michigan. And I didn't think he was all that bitter or whiny or anything else. But that was me, and I seem to be in the minority on that. What about my dislikes? Any thoughts?
Yeah, the student section. This first real weekend on campus, they had other festivities
to attend to. I knew you were going to do it.
Yeah, because I get it. I'll tell you, that was the most uncomfortable I've ever been in that stadium. It was so hot, man. We did not get a lot of breezes. There was not very much cloud cover at any point during the game. So our tailgate that we're taking part in with the Blue by 90 guys was near where a lot of the students were coming from. And they were rowdy. They were ready to go. And then, by halftime, they had other things to get to. So, the first JJ play was bizarre. I even was looking to see if Cade's shoe had become untied or something, because there was just no explanation for that. And that was something they did early in the year last year, where it was the same thing where it's like, if you're going to give him a series or whatever, fine. But really, what does that do? And then, we've been over the Cade stuff. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, like everything that seems to happen today is the extreme views kind of run. And I probably agree with you more than I disagree with you. But again, how the rest of the week goes is probably going to matter more than the comments themselves.
What about running McCarthy up big like they did on that? What was it, a 20-yard touchdown? You could make the case let's not have McCarthy running the ball there. I know Jim Scarcelli, who was on with the postgame show, he pointed out he didn't like that. So I don't know.
It's such a weird balance, because you got to let them play. Otherwise, why have them play, right? It's kind of a weird. It was the whole thing with Ronnie Bell getting hurt on the punt return too. It's like, oh, why do you have him back there? He never should have been returning punts. Well, he had a great return on the play he got hurt on last year. That's why he was returning punts, right? JJ is out there because he's a threat to run. So, yes, you don't want to get the guy hurt in a game where it doesn't matter late, but you also don't want to get in his head too. Anybody that's played, if you've had a coach tell you, hey, don't play like this, do like this, that messes with you way more than just letting the guy play. So, you got to let him be him. I do think he's probably got to take less hits, right? I mean, that's kind of the concern some people have if he does eventually become the starter, is getting out of bounds, sliding, things like that. But you can't get in a guy's head and say, hey, you know that thing that makes you really special? Don't do it this time.
Right.
Because that's going to mess with him more than if he's just allowed to go out there and play.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson got hurt last year, not by running down he was in the pocket.
Yeah.
So he got hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. It could happen at any time. So you hope it doesn't. And you teach them the ways to avoid it, but you don't tell him right before he marches on the field, hey, don't run. We don't want you to get hurt.
No, I think you show him tape of Dylan McCaffrey from a couple of years ago, because McCaffrey and McCarthy, maybe, similar type runners, certainly dual threat guys, but McCaffrey, he was lowering his shoulder on guys. I mean, that's how he got concussed one time, and then
Oh yeah, Wisconsin headhunting, man, took his head off. That was terrible.
Well, yeah, that was a terrible hit, but
terrible.
He didn't mind mixing it up in there and lowering his shoulder, and you don't want to do that.
No, JJ, when he had that run where Wilson got his helmet ripped off against Ohio State, JJ had the run on that play, and he did that little spin move and exposed his back to the defenders. And I was like, oh, just go out of bounds, man, please.
Yeah, Harbaugh mentioned it today. I think the whole thing, he was going around, then at the end he's like, he does need to get down more. So I think that he agrees with the person that said something about that. Adrian, there he is, protect himself. All right, Trevor, great job, over an hour. We appreciate it. Did you have a last thought? Anything that I didn't ask you that you want to get out there to the people?
No, I guess actually, yeah, it's with this QB debate, let's continue to let both players have the opportunity and respect. I think, yes, the backup quarterback, JJ popular, Cade, but all that stuff is fine. But there's been some stuff. I know Twitter's not real life, but there's been some stuff from Michigan fans online that I think everybody could take a deep breath and kind of just let this play out and remember they are humans, and not every Instagram post means something deep, and not every comment is the worst thing they've ever said. They're college kids competing for a quarterback job. Sometimes it's just that simple. So I'm excited for the game. I'm excited for JJ's start for sure. Excited for the next step, see a little bit more. And if the defense continues to overly impress us, and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, just going through this week, let's take a deep breath and just kind of let things play out.
Good job. Twitter at Trevor McCue, MCCUE, for those that are just listening on the pod, which are hundreds of you, not the thousands maybe that are watching this at some point. Thanks for all of the feedback for Trevor McCue. Everybody have a great Labor Day, and we'll talk with you again on the Maize and Blue Review tomorrow at 1:00, Michigan Football Today. Until